It's nearly unbelievable how quickly a family can disintegrate, particularly when millions are observing. You see a group professing to be held together by faith, love, and oneness, one moment. The next, you are seeing those very bonds gradually and agonizingly unravel. But suppose the greatest deceit in this family wasn't merely an isolated lie or mishap? What if it was an entire narrative, carefully rehearsed and repeated until even those living it started buying in? Well, the truth is finally cracking through the surface. Robyn didn't merely become part of the Brown family, she altered it entirely, and in ways no one could have predicted. Hi friends, I'm Lola, and welcome to Reality Recap. If you're here for the truth beneath the headlines, then you're in the right place. While we go deeper into this, I have a little request to make. If you like genuine discussions like this one, support us in reaching 1,000 likes on this video. It honestly means a lot to me and keeps these in-depths going strong. Don't forget to subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments, your voice matters here. Now about the central characters at the center of all this drama. There's Robyn, the so-called peacemaker, who soon enough became the family's most polarizing figure. And then there's Kody, the patriarch who at one point promised to keep everyone intact, then later chose up sides. And of course, there's Meri, Janelle, and Christine, the original wives, each carrying their own stories of resilience, heartbreak, and strength. This isn't just a reality show. It's actual life. And the truth? It's more jaw-dropping than anything you've seen on TV. When the Browns revealed their move from Las Vegas to Flagstaff, the official reason sounded innocent enough. A clean slate, they promised, cooler weather, a slower pace, a place to finally get settled. But if you listen very closely, the fissures in that story started right away. Because the actual reason for that relocation wasn't about the whole family's health. It was about Robyn's son going to Northern Arizona University overnight. Everyone else's aspirations and needs took a back seat for one college acceptance letter. This wasn't some carefree family relocation. This was a big disruption. Meri, Christine, and Janelle had to disrupt their lives and abandon children who had already forged their own way in Las Vegas. Some were going to college, some employed, others just starting out as adults. None of that apparently mattered. The decision had been made. And the rest of them? They were supposed to just go along with it. You could almost see the sadness in their faces as they closed up their houses, knowing full well that this relocation was drawing them further and further away from their adult children. For mothers like Janelle and Christine, always putting their children first, this was a disappointment that didn't even receive the notice it was due. Robyn, however, was in the spotlight. Her child's future was now the family's future. And Kody remained steadfastly at her side, affirming whose needs actually counted. The lesson couldn't have been more explicit. If you weren't included in Robyn's clique, you were second best. Favoritism was no longer rumor at that point, but cold, lived reality emotionally. The repercussions came quickly. The original wives felt discarded. Their abandoned children. Their voices muffled. It wasn't an actual physical relocation, it was a transparent change in allegiance. A declaration of who mattered. And who didn't. The move to Flagstaff didn't herald a new start. It began a chapter where manipulation and favoritism ruled every move. And from there, the cracks in the family only widened. Robyn's coming was initially made out to be a blessing, a chance for the family to expand and accept plural marriage at its purest. But from the very beginning, her presence totally transformed the family structure. She didn't only fit in, she redefined the family entirely. Robyn came equipped with her own expectations, her own rules, and a tendency to make herself the center of almost every conversation. Before too long, she and her children were known as the nucleus of the family, a phrase that felt like a slap in the face each time it appeared on screen. Kody's language even started changing. He began talking about our kids and our family in a way that had Meri, Janelle, Christine, and their kids firmly on the outside. Robyn's emotional approach was subtle but effective. She frequently played the victim angle, talking about how the other wives never quite accepted her or her children. She'd cry on TV, express that she felt omitted, and assert that all she wanted was peace and harmony. But when you glanced behind the curtain, her actions spoke a whole different story. She never failed to criticize the other wives' shortcomings, doubt their commitment, or characterize their efforts to remain close to their own children as some kind of betrayal to the family. There was even an incident on the show when Robyn suggested that Meri, Janelle, and Christine somehow changed merely because they wanted to spend additional time visiting their adult children. As if expressing adoration for your own children more openly threatened the unity of the family, that sort of twisting of narratives became a hallmark move for Robyn. She could reinterpret history to present herself as the only one who really cared to keep the family intact, even while quietly pushing Kody to become detached from his other wives. You might have heard it in the tone she used with him, always framing herself as the loyal partner who really understood him. She'd whisper such things as, "I just want you to be happy." And the message was always the same. Happiness, to her, was opting for her and her children over all others. Robyn's manipulation did not always take the form of great loud waves. Sometimes it was merely a look, a sigh, or an artfully delivered remark. But eventually, it paid off. Kody spent most of his time at Robyn's house. He made choices with her, not with the family in general. The change wasn't subtle. It was felt acutely by the other wives, and by their children as well. The once united family was now broken, Robyn and her children solidly at the center, everyone else edged further out toward the periphery. It wasn't merely a matter of change in where individuals resided. It was a change in the very essence of the family. And it all started with the day Robyn walked in that front door. Kody Brown once preached fairness like it was his own personal mantra. He'd sit at family gatherings and promise to care for every wife, and each child, the same. But with the passage of time, those vows grew increasingly hollow-sounding with each utterance. At first, the change was small. Kody would spend only a few extra minutes at Robyn's. He'd brush off the others' worries, come up with excuses, pretend they were just overreacting. But the favoritism was eventually impossible to ignore. Robyn wasn't merely one of the wives anymore, she was his co-conspirator in all choices that counted. The rest of the family? They became an afterthought. You could detect it in Kody's attitude. He tuned out Meri, Janelle, and Christine. They only had a say if what they had to say agreed with Robyn. If the wives protested or stood up for their kids, Kody would become distant, argumentative, even dismissive. He'd say things like, "You're not being supportive," or, "You're making this harder than it needs to be." It was clear. The only emotions Kody acknowledged were Robyn's. The emotional neglect didn't go unnoticed. Especially by the kids who didn't live in Robyn's house. Birthdays came and went without calls. Milestones passed without celebration. The family feeling that had always characterized the Browns was fading away, bit by bit, and Kody's contradictions didn't stop at relationships. They seeped into the finances of the family, as well. Recall My Sister Wives Closet, a venture that Kody once touted as a means of empowering the wives and creating something together. But when it tanked, it was the original wives who took the hit. Family funds were invested into failing businesses. And when they didn't work, Kody was quick to blame, never at himself, always at someone else. Next came the huge house in Flagstaff, purchased for Robyn with shared family funds. Janelle meanwhile had to get along in an RV. Meri was supposed to be content with less. The double standard wasn't subtle, it was glaring. Kody's ever-changing stories became a reliable pattern. When things were good, he preached unity and family. But when the second things got rough, he redefined the narrative. He was suddenly saying he'd never really loved the other wives. That he was only going through the motions until Robyn appeared. He even said, "I was never really happy until now," as if all those years of mutually shared life and kids meant nothing. What stung the most was seeing him distribute literal lists, informing the wives what they had to do to please him. Their worth, in his opinion, appeared to be dependent on whether or not they were able to meet his changing demands. The Kody who once stood on a soapbox discussing family values ended up being the one who broke them. His actions expressed more than any of his words. He called for loyalty, but he gave none in return. He called for sacrifice, yet only judgment was given. And all the while, he held on to the notion that he was the one being victimized. That he was the victim of everybody else's shortcomings. But the reality? Kody's loyalty wasn't free, was paid by only Robyn. The rest of the family was left holding the fragments, questioning whether or not the man they'd once trusted would ever fully return. What occurred to Meri, Janelle, and Christine wasn't a second plot twist, it was a very intimate unwinding of lives that had been tied together for years. Each woman experienced her own emotional crisis, but the hurt was shared, and the damage bled over into their children as well. Meri, Kody's first and sole wife, was increasingly relegated to the background. The catfishing experience had already made her weak and vulnerable. But as Robyn's control on the family strengthened, Meri's position was eroded. She attempted to reconnect, to revive what was shattered, but each move was countered with cold indifference or distant courtesy. The affection that Kody had shown in the past had disappeared, replaced by a shallow courtesy that made every family gathering strained. Meri's loneliness was palpable. The cameras caught her quiet despair, moments of solitary sitting, tears swallowed back, quietly wondering if she even still belonged in the family. Janelle's experience was divergent, yet the hurt went just as deep. She had been the practical one, the behind-the-scenes glue that kept things together. When they made the big transition to Flagstaff, Janelle sacrificed more than most. She spent her retirement funds to assist in buying property, still hoping in that dream they had created together. But that dream ultimately began to disintegrate. While Robyn became comfortable in her spacious home, Janelle was left in an RV, inhibiting harsh winters and living with an uncertain future. Her kids, always her number one priority, weren't immune to the stress either. Some of them stayed behind in Las Vegas, while others fought to find their place among the family's new dynamic. Janelle's calm strength carried her through, but you could tell she was worn down too, evidence that even the strongest people get weary. Christine did reach a breaking point, though. She had always been the emotional pulse of the family, the one who injected light, laughter, and vitality into every party. But when Kody's attention became completely absorbed in Robyn, Christine felt erased. She stood by and watched her children be ignored, their critical moments forgotten, their needs swept aside. The turning point was when Kody declined to fly for their daughter Isabel's operation, prioritizing his own comfort over that of his child. That one choice broke any illusions that were left. Christine could see at that point, she was no longer able to keep giving up her happiness, or her kids' happiness, for a man who had checked out long ago. Her decision to leave wasn't emotional, it was revolutionary. She stuffed her belongings, bid farewell to the only life she'd ever known, and began anew in Utah. But amidst all this devastation, something good came out of it. Christine and Janelle, who had become more like friendly neighbors than close friends, started to bond. Their common pain was the starting point of an even stronger, more intimate relationship. They supported each other in their darkest moments, proving to the world that healing can be achieved, even amidst devastation. Their friendship was a silent act of defiance, and a source of hope. The reality is, the original wives and their kids were on the receiving end of Kody and Robyn's decisions. But they showed what real resilience is all about. So much of what Kody and Robyn did in those last few seasons seemed more like performance than family life. Robyn would appear on television shows with a shaking voice, maintaining that she only wanted peace, that her heart's desire was for the family to remain together. But what did happen behind closed doors told a very different story. Robyn hardly called Meri, Christine, or Janelle unless she needed to advance something, an agenda to fulfill, or a criticism to offer. Her vision of domestic bliss always equated to one thing, everyone else falling into conformity with her. Kody, unsurprisingly, leaned right into the act. He continued talking about fairness, about principles and family unity, but his actions always seemed to favor Robyn and her children. When the pandemic struck, he enforced strict protocols that just so happened to keep him at Robyn's house full-time. The other wives and their kids? Left to fend for themselves. He mentioned health and safety. But it was clear who he was protecting. Even on the internet, Kody and Robyn only shared carefully staged moments, holiday photos, family news, milestones. And even then, their posts featured nearly always just one household, theirs. The rest of the family wasn't present, not only in the photos, but in real life either. There were times on the show when Robyn would tearfully insist that she wanted the other wives to remain, that she wanted to make amends. But her words were not always matched by action. She didn't do much to mend the rift or really incorporate the children of the other wives. Instead, she cemented her position as the eternally devoted wife, the one who was always there for Kody, no matter what. To some, the act appeared authentic. But to anyone actually paying attention, the reality was all too clear. Robyn and Kody weren't interested in mending the family. They were interested in maintaining their reputation. That so-called cohesion they talked of? All a publicity stunt. The disintegration of the Brown family was not an overnight thing. It was a slow and agonizing process, with each attempt at reconciling followed by another failure. You could tell by the look on their faces, the weariness, the anger, as they continued to try. What were once family meetings gradually turned into battlegrounds. Wounds that had long healed reopened, and new ones were created. Kody would continue to speak of unity, but his message carried no weight. The trust upon which this big, messy family had been sustained was gone, eroded by distrust, frustration, and lingering bitterness. The original wives, who had worked for years to create a life together, were suddenly on opposite sides of a chasm too deep to cross. And the kids? They felt it acutely. Some attempted to remain neutral, holding on to the hope that things would get better. Others were unable to suppress their disappointment, or their outrage. Formerly close friendships became strained, or dissolved. Adult children failed to appear for holidays. Young children observed their mothers become increasingly withdrawn as their father became increasingly aloof. That sense of unity and belonging that had characterized the Browns was lost, replaced with stings of silence and grief. Even the happiest occasions, weddings, graduations, the birth of new babies, were tainted by the pervasive shadow of unspoken tension. The wounds left by years of favoritism and manipulation won't easily disappear. Robyn's efforts to reconstruct the history of the family, to position herself as the victimized outsider, only served to exacerbate the problem. And Kody's continued refusal to accept his own culpability made reconciliation impossible. What people saw on television was frequently a edited-for-television version of reality, with the toughest, most painful bits either toned down or excised altogether, but the truth was always present. Just below the surface, this family, once a symbol of strength and unity, was dismantled by secrets, favoritism, and the constant desire to control. Ultimately, the Brown story served as a cautionary tale. A warning about what occurs when trust has been broken, and love is superseded by power struggles and ego. The expense wasn't just a bad marriage. It wasn't merely about walking away from a house or telling a lifestyle goodbye. It was the loss of a family, and with that, security, support, and belonging that a true family is meant to bring. Seeing the Browns' tale play out has been a potent reminder of what is lost when honesty and respect are sacrificed for control and appearances. Whatever a family says about being together, the truth will ultimately rise to the top. The hurt, the favoritism, the betrayals, they cannot be covered by polished words or carefully staged family photos. Real connection takes effort. It means showing up for one another, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it's hard. The Browns showed us that when trust is broken, it's not just the parents who suffer. The children feel it too, and often, they carry those wounds the longest. If there's a takeaway from this story, it's this: families don't exist on last names and common traditions alone. They exist on truth, on showing up, on creating space for every single person at the table. Without that, it doesn't matter if the house is big, or how many holidays get celebrated. What matters most is the love and devotion you give when nobody's looking. Thanks for taking the time with me today, and for actually caring about what really happened, rather than just the headlines. I'm Lola, and this is Reality Recap. If this video spoke to you, please help us achieve our goal of 1,000 likes. It really does matter. Don't forget to subscribe for more straight-up commentary, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What resonated with you? What do you believe could have altered the direction? Your input is valuable here, and I'm eager to hear what you think.